What's up, and welcome back to another episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. I'm your host, Mason Kenahan, and today the Washington Commanders just beat the Carolina Panthers 40-7. 40. Another 40-piece for Cliff Kingsbury and this Washington Commanders offense, and of course Dan Quinn and this defense as well. The second time this season, Washington has put up 40 points. I don't remember the last time heading into this year Washington put up 40 points in a single game, and now they've done it twice in a span of a month. So the Washington Commanders improved to 5-2 on the year, undefeated at home, 3-0 at home at Northwest Stadium, undefeated at Northwest Stadium. They beat the Carolina Panthers, who now fall to 1-6 on the year, 1-3 on the road. Carolina only put up 7 points in garbage time, very end of the game. Washington at one point was up 37-0 at one point, 37-0, which is insane. You look at that and you think of like a college game or like Alabama. I guess Alabama isn't really good pick right now. I guess, I don't know, like Ohio State against, UL Monroe or something like that. That's when you expect the 37-0s to be happening, not two NFL teams going up against each other. The Commanders 5-2, and they did it in a very unconventional way, a way that many people, including myself, did not think heading into this game that they were going to win. So we'll start with that. I didn't have a preview pod on Friday. I skipped Friday's pod. I had some homework to do. But one of the things I would say is that this could have been a trap game for Washington. This is a game that, Darrell Green, his jersey was getting retired, number 28. His jersey was getting retired at halftime. This is a game that some Commanders teams lose in the last few years. Not just some. Pretty much all the Commanders teams in the last, decade plus. They lose in games like this because you're honoring an alumni. It's all set up to be great, and in the past we've seen them lose these games pretty often. But to come out here right from the jump and be just pretty much on it the entire time for Washington, foot on the gas, nothing else, no breaks pretty much for this Washington team. I'll have to start though with probably the top storyline with this game, and that of course is Jayden Daniels going down on the first play of the game, actually, for this Washington offense. Going down on the first play of this game. Daniels hurt his ribs and finished out the drive, ended up finishing out the opening drive, but was in clear discomfort throughout the entirety of it. He did not return. It was Marcus Mariota the rest of the way. So Jayden Daniels finished 2 of 2 for 6 yards, a 79.2 passer rating, but he also had 3 carries for 50 yards, including a 46-yard run on the first play for Washington's offense in this one. Daniels goes down. After that play, was slow to get up. You could really tell he was kind of grimacing a little bit. He did finish out that drive, like I mentioned, but then he was getting looked at by trainers. He ended up going into the medical tent and then into the locker room to get x-rayed. Here are the updates so far on what we've heard from reports about Jayden Daniels. Some things have said that the x-rays were good. Some people were reporting, I think Cameron Wolf reported it, some other people as well. The x-rays ended up being good. I'm not going to actually say it right now, but the message that x-rays are good, and also the fact that Jayden's mom also tweeted on Twitter or X or whatever that he's fine as well, makes me believe that it won't be a long-term injury, because many reports have kind of leaned towards that being the way. I don't know, though, if he plays next week. I don't know if it's like not being long-term, being like, hey, he's out for the next couple of weeks, but he'll be back 3 weeks from now. Not exactly sure the extent of that yet. Dan Quinn said there was no update in his post-game press conference of the status of Jayden Daniels. They're going to get reevaluated tomorrow with more x-rays and more evaluations and stuff like that. And then he'll have an update in Monday's press conference in the afternoon. So be on the lookout for that, because that's probably when Dan Quinn will say the status and the extent of Jayden Daniels' injury. Now, again, by the time Jayden Daniels finished with his x-rays and came out of the locker room, he was smiling, he was waving to fans. All right, seemed all good. Washington, though, was also up 27-0. So there was no point of bringing him back into the game against clearly the worst team in the league, the Carolina Panthers right now. There was no point of bringing him back into the game. So, again, and I'll get into it in a little bit, but Marcus Mariota was not playing like you would, like, well, many people thought he would play. Like, he was on fire throughout the entire game. So Jayden Daniels, this is the main storyline. Daniels was injured early with a rib injury. Not exactly sure the extent of it, whether it be a bruised rib, a broken rib. It's leaning towards more of a short-term injury for Jayden Daniels. Will he miss time? That is still up in the air. Washington plays Chicago next week, 4 o'clock on Sunday, against number 1 overall pick Caleb Williams. That game got flexed to the 4 p.m. window because it was number 1 against number 2. Now, though, that could potentially be up in the air. So be on the lookout for Dan Quinn's press conference. I'll also probably tweet about it on my Twitter at Mason_Kenahan as well. So be on the lookout for that Monday afternoon as well. So that is something to keep an eye on. Again, Dan Quinn, and he made it very clear in his post-game press conference, there are currently no updates. He doesn't have any update. Well, he doesn't want to say any updates on the status of Jayden Daniels. So we have yet to see the extent of the injury. Moving on, though, to the offense, because this was probably the surprising thing throughout the entire game. Marcus Mariota in number 18, by the way, because he gave up number 0 to Mike Sanders still before the season started. But Marcus Mariota, 18 of 23, 205 yards, 2 touchdowns, a 132.8 passer rating. He only took 1 sack the entire game. He was on fire. Now, it took him a little bit to get adjusted to playing football again. You could tell the speed of the game. He had to get adjusted to it a little bit because he hasn't played all season. He's been dealing with an injury of his own that kind of put him on injured reserve to begin the season. So he was already out for the first 4 weeks. He wasn't practicing. So he only started practicing for the season about 2 or so weeks ago, back from his injury. And now he gets thrown out there with Jayden Daniels injured at the beginning of the game. The fans, very quiet. That stadium got very quiet when Daniels went down, and people saw Daniels go to the locker room. But Mariota, the first drive he was out there for, I believe, was a punt. That made me very scared. But afterwards, he scored on every single possession after that. So Marcus Mariota in this offense score on 7 of the 8 possessions throughout this entire game, not including the last possession, of course, that was kind of like just the run out the clock at the end of the game. But Marcus Mariota, crazy numbers. Did not expect that out of him. I, along with many other people, have watched training camp, watched the preseason, and Jeff Driscoll has looked better than Marcus Mariota. And we were kind of concerned about Mariota being the QB2 over a guy like Jeff Driscoll. But he comes in. It took a little bit for him to get rolling, and I thought they would have to run the ball with Brian Robinson the rest of the game. But they put the ball in Mariota's hands, and he delivered. He also had 2 big-time throws, no turnover-worthy plays for Marcus Mariota as well, which is something that Mariota struggled with within the last couple of seasons as he's gotten older, is those turnover-worthy plays, but did not throw any picks, did not have any turnover-worthy plays, and he made multiple big-time throws as well, which is just crazy. Because if you told me that Washington would win this game 40-7, I would be like, that's awesome. Jayden Daniels goes off again. Jayden Daniels is going to win Rookie of the Week for the 6th week in a row or something like that. But no, it was Marcus Mariota who was dealing out there, which is just so cool to see. The offense in total, 421 total yards, 35-plus minutes of time of possession. So they were in control the entire game. The passing attack was pretty much as good as you could want it. Over 200 yards through the air, both 2 touchdowns as well. Terry McLaurin caught all 6 of his targets for 98 yards, so big day for him. Zach Ertz, 4 catches for 40 yards. Olamide Zaccheaus, 4 catches for 25. De'Ami Brown had a catch. Noah Brown had a catch. Ben Sinnott, 2 catches for 6 yards, including his very first catch in the NFL being a touchdown as well. So you love to see it. Ben Sinnott getting a touchdown on his very first NFL catch. So, again, good stuff. Only 20 completions in the game total between Mariota and Daniels, but it was enough to put up 40 points, or I guess 33 points of offense, because we'll get into the defense in a little bit, but they had a game as well. So Mariota and this offense delivered through the air and on the ground as well. Brian Robinson, 12 carries for 71 yards. He averaged almost 6 yards per carry. He had a touchdown. Jayden Daniels already mentioned at 3 for 50. Jeremy McNichols had 7 rushes for 42 yards. Mariota was out there running out of the pocket sometimes. He had 11 carries for 34 yards. I will say, I got to bring this up. One of the things I did not like in Cliff Kingsbury's play calling, which once more, another week, and Cliff Kingsbury is lighting it up. I expected Washington's offensive numbers to take a big dip with where things are at, and again, not having Jayden Daniels at quarterback. But oh my goodness, no, this Washington offense is still going to be ranked top in the league, even with a backup quarterback under center. So Marcus Mariota, sorry, that was the good part. But the bad thing is, especially towards the end of the game in the second half, Marcus Mariota was forced to run a lot of designed quarterback runs Cliff Kingsbury was calling. So I didn't really like that play calling there from Kingsbury, especially since your QB1, Jayden Daniels, is already out for the game, potentially out for an extended period of time. And now your backup quarterback, when you're already up 40-7, 37-0, your backup quarterback is out there now just taking unnecessary hits. When the very first drive of the game, Jayden Daniels was kind of forced to make a lot of designed runs, designed keepers, and he got blown up because of it. So, yeah, I didn't really like that play calling from Cliff Kingsbury down the stretch of this game, and especially in general. He called a lot more designed quarterback runs than he has in previous games. I'll have to look at the exact numbers, but I felt like it was a ton. There were a lot of designed quarterback runs, and it kind of put Jayden Daniels in some bad spots. Especially, I'm assuming Kingsbury did not realize that that Jayden Daniels was injured after the long 46-yard rush that he had, because he called like 2 read options for Daniels and maybe a designed run as well, like right after. So Daniels was already grimacing, and now you're going to keep on making sure he takes big hits. Like, it was not great play calling in terms of keeping your quarterback safe for Cliff Kingsbury throughout this game. But beyond that, I loved where I saw the variety of different types of runs, different types of running styles, running formations that Washington's offense was in. It was incredible. The passing game and the play action game was working as well throughout the entire game. The crossers still working, wide open receivers you have across the middle of the field. Mariota, you could really tell when Washington signed him back in March. A lot of people saying, oh, you signed Marcus Mariota? Yeah, this team is going to be drafting Jayden Daniels, which did ultimately end up happening. But it also shows that this offense did not really need to change much from Jayden Daniels to Marcus Mariota. You look at maybe, let's say, hypothetically, Washington kept Jacoby Brissett, right? And Jacoby Brissett was your QB2 this season. Washington's offense gets very less complicated. And the dimensions that this offense has shrinks because of Jacoby Brissett, let's say, hypothetically, again, being in at quarterback as your backup. But they had a guy like Marcus Mariota, who, of course, can not only throw the ball, but has legs, and we've seen what he can do. Now, of course, his prime mobility was probably when he was at Oregon and just out of Oregon. But beyond that, you could tell that this offense did not really have to change much between Jayden Daniels to Marcus Mariota. Once Daniels got hurt, Mariota it took him a drive, I would say. But after that drive, you could tell that he was ready to go. He delivered every single drive, got him in the field goal range. They didn't succeed in the red zone every single time, but Seibert still delivered on all of his kicks. He still remains perfect as a Washington Commander beyond the blocked field goal last week. But still, big day for this Washington offense. 33 points in total for this Washington offense. I'll go through the drives one more time if my mouse actually connects. It does. I'll go through the drives. You go field goal for Jayden Daniels, 11 plays, 85 yards. Then the punt, it was a 3-and-out for Washington, and I thought this offense was cooked. I mean, Marcus Mariota comes in. He goes 3 plays, -5 yards. Mariota, 1st and 10, rush to the right side. 2nd and 6, sacked. 3rd and 10, penalty. And 3rd and 15, incomplete pass where the receiver was wide open and Mariota just overshot him. So I thought this offense was cooked after Mariota comes in and delivers that 3-and-out. But then after that, 4 plays, 59 yards, touchdown. 5 plays, 7 yards, field goal after Carolina went for it for some reason inside their own territory, and they didn't get it. But then 8 plays, 92 yards, touchdown. 10 plays, 59 yards, touchdown. 10 plays, 55 yards, field goal. 12 plays, 59 yards, field goal. This offense right now is on another level compared to any other offense in the league. And even no matter, it showed today, no matter who's under center, whether it's Jayden Daniels, whether it's Marcus Mariota, this offense can succeed. And I think that's just a great boost of confidence that you have if you're a Washington fan, seeing, hey, if Jayden Daniels is not going to be able to go next week against Chicago, what we saw from Mariota today was awesome. It was awesome. Over 200 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns. Again, a very good completion percentage. So this offense in general kind of just makes quarterbacks look good in terms of completion percentage. So it just shows that, hey, this offense can roll even with a backup quarterback under center. So you love to see it now. Again, hopefully Jayden Daniels does end up coming back next week to play Chicago, but we don't know. Don't really know the status right now, right after the game. So that is what I got to say about this offense. Moving on to the defense, because this defensive performance should be talked about. It was spectacular. Only 7 points allowed for this defense. I'm going to go through, okay, last few weeks, if you don't count the loss to the Ravens, this defense has allowed 7, 13, and 14 points. They have allowed 20 points or less in 5 of the 7 games they've played. 20 points or less in 5 of the 7 games they played. Last season and the last few seasons, Washington's offense has struggled to score 20 points. Now Washington's defense is holding opponents to less than 20 points. It's a crazy turnaround we've seen from Dan Quinn, Joe Witt, and this defensive staff. Now, some people were oh, wait. Hold on. That I lied. It's 4 of the 7 games. 4 of the 7 games they've allowed 20 points or less. That's my bad. I misread something. 4 of the 7 games. Still, that's very good. The only teams that have scored more than 20 points on them are the Buccaneers, the Bengals, and the Ravens. That is it. And now, upcoming, we've got Bears, Giants, Steelers. We should see similar results than as to what we've seen the last few weeks for Washington's defense. But, guys, that stood out to me today. First of all, the takeaways. 2 takeaways for this Washington defense today. That's something I've been preaching for the last month and a half. Can this Washington defense get some takeaways? They didn't get any in the first 2 games, I believe. Then they've kind of gotten one every single game. But now, this is their first, I believe this is their first, multiple takeaway game of the season. Dante Fowler, pick 6, opening possession for Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle, and this Carolina offense. All right, they drive down the field. It looks like Washington's defense is going to have one of those days where they make Andy Dalton look like he's in prime form. But no, Andy Dalton rolls out to his right. He kind of lets off a little pass and overthrows his running back on kind of a dump off. Intercepted by Dante Fowler, who takes it back 60-plus yards to the house for number 6, gets Washington 6 points, and pretty much just sets the tone for the rest of the game. Dante Fowler also getting the game ball as well in this one, which is cool to see. So, I mean, Dante Fowler, I have the final stats for him. He had by far the best game of his Washington career so far. 4 pressures, 3 hurries, 1 sack, 1 interception, 1 pick 6. His live PFF grade was a 95.2. 95.2. That is better than elite. A crazy good PFF grade. Again, the PFF grades will get finalized on Monday, but his live PFF grade was a 95.2, which is incredible. So it'll be somewhere around there for Dante Fowler. Very good game from Fowler, who only played 20 snaps in this one, but made his presence felt pretty much on every single one of them. So, liked what I saw out of Dante Fowler. Also had a tackle for loss. I just saw that as well. So, tackle for loss and a pass breakup. Good stuff. Good stuff from number 6, the former Dallas Cowboy, who's now a Washington Commander. So, shout out Dante Fowler. All right, another guy got a shout out. Number 13. Number 13, Emmanuel Forbes. Interception. How about that? Emmanuel Forbes activated for the first time in 2 weeks, was a healthy inactive last week because Dan Quinn said he wanted to add an extra body on the defensive line. So instead, they made Emmanuel Forbes an inactive player. I'll have to end up seeing how many snaps Forbes actually played, which I think was actually pretty high in this one, just because there was a lot of garbage time. But Emmanuel Forbes in the second quarter, I believe it was the second quarter, with an interception. So Forbes gets his second quarterback on the Forbes list. You had Russell Wilson throw a pick to Emmanuel Forbes in the second week of last season. But then, and I know people have been wanting to add to the Forbes list throughout all of last season. We did not see any picks from the turnover machine, number 13. But today, cool to see. It's cool to see. Pretty much the entire secondary played well. Emmanuel Forbes getting the interception. I believe it was kind of just a misread from Andy Dalton and kind of went right to Emmanuel Forbes. So you love to see it. You love to see him actually catching those, not dropping them as well. Nice little return as well. So Emmanuel Forbes gets his second quarterback on the Forbes list, which is awesome because, again, don't know the future past this year with Emmanuel Forbes in Washington. But, you just got to root for the guy. All right, former first-round pick. I know it's been a struggle, but it's cool to see him get interception. So Emmanuel Forbes gets a pick. Got to shout him out. Frankie Louvu all over the backfield for the Washington Commanders in this one. He was everywhere. Number 4 has been doing everything for Washington. It was kind of a quiet week for him last week against Baltimore, but the week before that, this week, and a couple weeks before last week, he's been everywhere in the last few weeks. Louvu finished with 4 tackles. He also had a sack, 2 tackles for loss for number 4, the weak side linebacker for Washington. So it's been awesome to see Louvu run around, do his thing, because it's cool to see Dan Quinn and Joe Witt use his versatility on the line, in coverage, similar to a guy like Dante Fowler. Like, you can move him on the line, make him rush the passer, but you can also send him out in coverage for a little bit as well. So both of those guys are doing well. And I just want to give a shout out to Jalen Walker, the Georgia pass rusher and linebacker. Usually the bye week for Washington is the first week I usually get into draft stuff on this podcast for the Washington Commanders. But I want to shout out Walker because that guy can fly all over the field as well. He was making plays for Georgia against number one Texas last Saturday. And that was just a guy that reminded me of Frankie Louvu and Dante Fowler, and how he can both be in coverage and make plays, and then he can also rush the passer off the edge and make plays against. And he was doing it against some of the top offensive tackle prospects in this upcoming class. So I wanted to shout him out. Potential Commanders pick. It'd be pretty cool to see Jayden Walker on this team, but I'll get more into the draft stuff later on. Moving back to the game against Carolina, though, it was, again, great performance from this defense. Another guy I want to shout out, Mike Sanderstill, number 0, Frozone, has done it again. Another great game from the rookie, third-round pick out of Michigan. 7 tackles in this one. He had a tackle for loss. He had a PBU. Yeah, I mean, he was making plays left and right. He's been doing it for the last few weeks. You love to see it. You love to see it because, again, I know his future is probably going to be in the nickel position for Washington, but him making plays on the outside, playing outside corner is cool, because then you can see his versatility that he can bring to your team. So Mike Sanderstill as well. A great game from him. Some other guys that got playing time in this one on defense. F.A. Obata got playing time in this one. Hold on. On the ESPN sheet, it says Colson Yankoff got some time on defense. I don't know if that's the case, but I don't think it was. I think that's just a glitch there. But F.A. Obata got time. Jalen Holmes on the defensive line got time. Especially pretty much everyone that was a backup on this defense got time during that fourth quarter when Carolina put in Bryce Young for Andy Dalton. So it's cool to see pretty much anyone that was active today get playing time for the Washington Commanders, especially on this defensive front. We were kind of wondering what the depth looks like on this defensive line without Jonathan Allen now. So I'll have to go back and watch how those guys like Jalen Holmes and F.A. Obata did. And, of course, guys like Johnny Newton, who I don't think had a great game, or Clelin Ferrell as well. But Sheldon Day, another guy. But, yeah, I'll have to see how they did. But it's cool to see them getting reps, live-action reps as well, in a game where Washington's just blowing out opposing offenses and opposing teams on that defensive side of the ball, especially right now when they're going up against some weaker opponents like Carolina. 40-7, 33-point victory for Washington. So Moving on to some of my final takeaways. Again, the status of Jayden Daniels for next week is up in the air. We'll find out more about it on Monday afternoon. Beyond that, I mean, guys, 40-7. When was the last time we saw Washington beat a team 40-7? Like, I mean, they're kind of, especially against these weaker opponents, when Washington should win, which we did not see under the Ron Rivera era. We saw a lot of times when Washington should have won a game against the Giants, let's say, and they lost. But no, these games against teams that are not good, not as talented as your team, and games that you should win, Washington is winning, and Washington is winning in convincing fashion, 40-7 against this Carolina team. Some other things I want to note: this special teams unit, 2 forced fumbles on kickoffs, 2 of them. Now they didn't recover either of them. That would have been nice, but 2 forced fumble on the kickoffs, which again, guys flying everywhere, making big hits. I think Jerry McNichols was a guy making a big hit. Colson Yankoff, Jeremy Reeves was another one who made some big hits on special teams as well. Other things I already mentioned it, but Ben Sinnott getting his first touchdown as a Washington Commander and his first touchdown in the NFL, the former second-round pick. Oh, I think I mentioned, now that I think about it. Okay, Sanders still, I said, was a third-round pick, but he's a second-round pick. And then Sinnott as well, a second-round pick, getting his first touchdown in the NFL. But yeah, that is pretty much it. That's what's going to wrap this one up. Next week at Chicago. No, is it at Chicago? I don't know. I'm looking. It is at home against Chicago. You're going to have Jim Nantz on the call. You're going to have Tony Romo on the call. 4:25 against the Chicago Bears, October 27th. Number 2 overall pick, Jayden Daniels, if he plays, against actually, never mind. It'll be number 2 against number 1. A number 2 overall pick will be the quarterback against the number 1 overall pick. Whether it's Jayden Daniels or whether it's Marcus Mariota, it'll be a former number 2 overall pick against the number 1 overall pick in Caleb Williams. So that'll be fun to watch. But yeah, that'll do it for this week's episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. Washington is 5-2. Don't know the last time that happened in my life. I don't think it ever has. The Washington Commanders are 5-2, undefeated at home, going into a big matchup next week. This week's episode will be on Friday. I want to have a good guest for that one. A Chicago Bears guy, knows a lot of ball, so that'll be a good episode. And then the recap pod next Monday as well. So also comment if you guys want me to upload these game recap podcasts on Monday morning or Sunday evening, because I'm kind of up in the air on that. So if you like them more Monday morning, say that. If you like them more and you want me to upload them right when I finish editing them after the games, then let me know that too. So that'll be it for this week's episode of Keeping Up with Commanders. See you guys in the next one. Peace.